Hello, and welcome to the Kathleen Spracklin podcast. I am a woman on a mission to help you get the Zettelkasten of your dreams on your work table beside you. Well, this is a whole brand new series that we're starting now, and it's Zettelkasten, the writing process. I am going to take you through in real time what I do when I am writing my monthly newsletter using my Zettelkasten. Now, in a way, it's one person using her Zettelkasten for one project. So on the one hand, it's not particularly general. So then we have to ask, well, what then is the value? Where does the value come from? And I think the value, if it arrives, and this is a bit of an experiment, but if it turns out to be valuable, it will be because it's real, because this is an actual thing that I'm doing. I'm working on my newsletter that will be released to the printer on the 15th of June. It's the 14th edition of my newsletter. So I've been doing this monthly newsletter for nicely over a year now. And so I'm pretty set in my process, and I do use my Zettelkasten for the purpose. So I thought maybe it would be worthwhile to share with you exactly how I go about creating that newsletter. As I said, it's a bit of an experiment, so if it turns out to be too redundant or not enough information about the Zettelkasten, I might abort it early. But I'm going to give it a try to let you know how it happens across the days and the stages of creating a 24-page newsletter in a period of time of 14 days. Let me begin by telling you a little bit about my newsletter, and then we'll skip on over to the down-facing camera, and we'll go a little bit more specifically into the process itself, where the Zettelkasten comes in, and how I work. I'm going to try to keep this within 10 minutes, so I'm going to be as brisk about it as I can. My newsletter is a follow-on to my book, Writing with Emotion, which itself is a follow-on of a 35-week YouTube course that's still available. It's an evergreen course. There's no charge for it, and I'll put the link in the descriptions in case you want to go try out that course. The book summarized the course, and my newsletter goes into more detail than the course. The course talks about a method and a process that I teach on how to create believable characters using a set of 28 character traits that are drawn from psychology, theology, philosophy, the intersection of those areas taken together. I'll put a link also in the description to a YouTube series also for free that explains the general principles of the system. Then each of my monthly newsletter dives into a single one of the 28 character traits and goes into great depth on it. And so in the process of creating this newsletter, I have to draw on my Zettelkasten quite a bit. And so that's what I'm going to try to focus on, is where the Zettelkasten comes in, how the Zettelkasten gets used, how I organize my pieces, where I put the product into my Zettelkasten, and I'm going to try to keep it focused on the most general, the most usable, applicable to other purposes. So before I run over there and show you day one of my process, I want to tell you a little bit about what day one means in my newsletter. My newsletter starts out with a story that illustrates the character trait in question. And so the first thing I do when I'm starting a new newsletter is I write that story. So this will also be a chance for me to show you how I go about creating story using my Zettelkasten. So let's get started. My writing process begins out of my vision of having my newsletter teach the character traits in depth. Out of that vision comes my monthly goal for creating a newsletter based on a single character trait. For me, that begins with brainstorming and identifying some cards in my Zettelkasten that I want to pull to help me create my story. And all this brainstorming is around the idea of the story that I want to write. So I'm going to be pulling these cards. Now this is pretty incomplete since it's just day one. It's the name of the character trait. And over here, I've got R.KSN014, the Kathleen Spracklin newsletter, issue 14. R. That tells you that I'm looking at a bib card here. No picture yet, not much information yet, but I've already started a bib card. And I have a great deal of thanks to Bev for her suggestion that I include the cards that I pull on a directory card. Believe it or not, I never used to do that. I just pulled them into a work area, worked from them, and then put them away. Or else if I logged them at all, they would be kind of scribbled around on my bib cards. So I'm very thankful to Bev. I think that's an excellent addition. So I have indicated that there is a link to this card. Examine where you are receiving joy. It was one of the brainstorming cards that I came up with to feed my story. And so I pulled the card, and it was a rather long one because it was a meditation that was logged on the card. Now I'm in story creation mode, so that means that I'm ready to create expanded kinds of inspirations from the cards that I'm pulling. I'm looking for letting my creativity begin to flow. So this R.D30 might be recognizable as the name of a yellow legal pad. And here it is. My next free space was on page 21. A was already filled, so B. And I just reacted to the card. I indicated a link to what I wrote. In the yellow legal pad, I linked back to the bib card. It started down here and then flipped the page and covered some more territory on this page. And again, I logged it on this bib card. Next, I pulled the next card that was an inspiration to me, and I did the same thing. I logged my reaction to the card in paragraph form, and that was this section. So each time I'm linking back to the card, and the card links to the spot where I've written. So these were where I was getting my ideas for the story. Throughout this process of creating the newsletter, I refer to this deck of cards, which goes over the different sections in my newsletter and tracks the purpose of each page in the newsletter, how I use them, and what they're supposed to accomplish in terms of illustrating the character trait that I'm trying to teach that month. So with those notes, I now have an idea of what I want to write about for my story. In the past, I would go straight from those notes on how I wanted to write my story to creating my first draft. I now go through a new process in between, and this is something that I learned from Michael Dean, who is an architect turned essayist, and he has a wonderful article on essay architecture. I will put the link to his Substack article in the show notes. You might want to read it. And I'll also put a link to an interview on YouTube. In the interview, David Perell interviewed Michael Dean and talked about his system for writing essays. In short, Michael Dean has worked out an essay architecture based on 3 dimensions, 9 elements, and 27 patterns. You'll see this figure in the interview if you follow the link, and you can see how all of the patterns come together. It's explained beautifully in that interview. And I have quite simply listed the 3 dimensions, the 3 elements under each dimension, and the 3 patterns under each element. And I've listed that out for all of the elements, Michael Dean's essay architecture. And before I begin writing, I'm logging my ideas and how they fit into Michael Dean's paradigm. The parts that I can't finish yet are the sound and sight, as these have to do with the finished text. So I'll have to come back and evaluate those after the first draft is written. But what the filling out this form does for me is it helps me work through the elements of my story to make sure that I'm saying what I want to say and helps me organize how I want to present it, what form I want to have everything, how I want the story to shape up. Okay, from there, it's just a matter of writing out the first draft of my story. I've gone to using a disc-bound notebook for my newsletter pages so that I can keep them all together. And because I'm generally referencing back and forth to my yellow legal pad, and so I don't really want to be trying to write the story in the subsequent pages and having to go back and forth and back and forth. I also have my cards out at the time I'm writing and the preliminary work that I did on researching where I wanted to go for the story. So that's it for day one. Let me know in the comments if you think this is worthwhile. As I said, it's an experiment. And so if it turns out to go sideways or to become too redundant or not have enough to do with the Zettelkasten, I may just say, okay, that's it, you know enough, and let it go from there. We'll see how it goes. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.